being a competitive person and loving surfing and then competing, at surfing, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And you would always hear people saying there's no soul. And I'd just be like, I'm having fun doing it. There has to be soul in it if I'm having fun doing it. But then there were a lot of things that were just, look, I think if I was just a full stoner, like total non-thinker person, I could have rolled with a lot of the decisions that the ASP made, but they made a lot of stupid decisions that compromise the surfers. Like the surfers were just like circus animals, like the circus animals don't have any say where the circus goes or whether the show should be an hour or 2 hours or, hey, I'm getting hot and I need some water over here. I'm just a horse.
That's Brad Gerlach. I'm Jamie Brisick, and this is Soundings, brought to you by the Surfer's Journal. The Surfer's Journal is a member-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Yeti. More like a book than a magazine, TSJ brings you 128 pages of independent storytelling every 8 weeks, covering the people, culture, travel, and art of surfing. To learn more or to subscribe, please visit surfersjournal.com. Brad is a 1980s and 90s Superman. I know this. I saw it firsthand. We first met at an NSSA contest in 1981. We were 15. Brad had clearly mapped out his ascent up the surfing ranks. In the El Porto parking lot, with lots of hand jive and body English, and a way of description where he physically acted the thing out. He told me about his boards and his sponsors and the contests he would win and the magazines he would appear in. He was the most confident teenager, maybe even human, that I'd ever met. And he did it. In 1985, a rookie on the world tour, he took out all the big guns to win the Stubbies Pro. He went on to a stellar career with many victories, finishing second in the world in 1991. He then became a celebrated big wave surfer. In 2002, Brad introduced the game, a team-based format for surfing competition, and 2 years later he founded the game-based National Surf League. Brad is the founder of Wave Key, quote, a martial art-like focus on slow, precise movements that embeds a powerful surfing pattern deep within you, helping you to extract every ounce of energy out of the ocean so you can surf better. Brad and I have been great friends through all of this, and in many ways, we've been having versions of the conversation that follows for the last 30-plus years. Today, Brad lives on the Gold Coast of Australia with his wife and son. We caught up in Malibu at the beachfront home of one of his clients. There were waves, which we had our eyes on the entire time we talked. So, Brad, welcome to the show, and we're so happy to have you.
Thanks so much. I'm honored to be on the show. I love the Surfer's Journal. I remember when it first started, and I was like, oh, okay. There's history, and it's presented beautifully. It's reverent towards surfing, and there's lots of irreverent characters that are stories are told, and I'm so happy that the Surfer's Journal exists because for a long time when I was a young kid, I loved Surfer and surfing, and I read it from start to finish, all the way down to those stupid little ads that with surf goggles, and I was like, who wears those? And then there'd be like Yancey Spencer's surf shop, and I'm like, people surf in Texas? I was just like learning. It was just like learning back to front. And those competition. Remember the gray pages in the back?
And
like,
all the results.
Who's that guy? Oh, Tom Curran seems to win everything. Who is that guy? And there's my name, 6th. All right, well, got to start somewhere.
No, I love this so much because this perfectly fits what I want to say. Is I was thinking about this conversation. I was thinking I want to start with my first memory of you. What I remember most is you were so tuned into everything. You were so passionate about surfing. You were so passionate about everything happening in the magazines, the movies. You were like lightning referencing all this stuff. In theory, I was supposed to be competing against you, and we were in the same division, so I could conceivably be in a final with you, which of course happened. But I was also getting like totally inspired by it all. At what point did you know that your life, you were going to have a big life in surfing?
It's hard to say because, looking back on it, the seriousness in which I took it was so far back to when I had holes in my wetsuits. I was riding a Agua single fin, I was going to the movies at La Paloma, watching Free Ride and many classic moments, and a few others that Forgotten Island of Santosha, and just these surf movies were just the only parts that bored me were the pipeline sequences because everything was in uber slow motion, and I just wanted to see people shredding. I was such a grom, but I remember getting in trouble and being taller than my mother, and my mother going like, "Hey, look, you have to go live with your dad. I can't even handle you anymore." And I was like, "What? He's in Arizona. He's not by the beach. And I said to her, I was like, "You're going to ruin my whole surf career." And I hadn't even surfed in a contest yet, really. Wow. And I was so bummed at her. And I have a couple of friends that were like, "Yeah, I remember you were like, man, that's it. It's gone. My ship sailing, like I'm not going to be what I want to be. And then later, I remember a year later or something, my mother saying something like, there's other things in life besides surfing. And I remember turning to my mother, like, not like shoving it off my shoulders, but turning to her and go, "Don't try to talk me out of it. I'm doing it. This is what I'm doing, Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I hadn't even, I hadn't really been sponsored. I hadn't won contests yet. I hadn't done all this stuff, but I was so determined to make it. I mean, it has to do with seeing my dad be a star. And I just was like, I was looking at her like, I have to be somebody. Yes. I can't just work somewhere. I have to be somebody. Yeah. I got to be somebody, Mom.
For sure. So for the listener who doesn't know, will you quickly, briefly give it a portrait of your dad and what he did?
Well, my dad was a Olympic diving. He came from Hungary. He got fourth in the Olympics. He got a scholarship from Sports Illustrated to go to University of Michigan. He told me he thought he was the best diver in the world from 59 to 60 because he won the American championships 2 times in a row. He said all the best divers were in the U.S. Even if they weren't U.S., they all just came to the U.S. and dove out of the U.S. But he couldn't go to the Olympics in 60. So anyway, he ended up doing some water shows. That's where he met my mother. My mother was a professional water skier and synchronized swimmer. So they met at these shows. And then my dad, he's just a thinker, and he developed the porta pit, the thing that the pole vaulters jump into and the high jumpers, they were jumping into sawdust before. And he got some foam rubber and netting. And to prove that it worked, he dove off a grandstand, 40-foot grandstand. He's an elegant, beautiful dive. And people were just fired up on the dive. And he sort of went, whoa, wait a second. I could probably. And so he started going, if you opened up a hotel and you wanted to, as the opening day, he would dive off the 8th or 10th floor. And then he went to have a consistent gig in Las Vegas. My sister was born there. And so three times a night, he dove out of Circus. They moved the crap tables over. I've got all these pictures in Life magazine of him doing it. I remember him doing it when I was about 3 and looking up, and then they had this whole speech and I used to mimic it. And I remember he dove into this thing, and it was, so I just watched him. And then he was on the Ed Sullivan show. He was on the Merv Griffin show. He dove at Monday Night Football, with a halftime show, so 1972, and that we have a big poster of that. It was insane. Right? This is all before I kind of surfed. I started surfing when I was 10.
Yep. No, but that gives a lot of context and explains a lot, I think, because what a very unconventional way to earn a living. And I think at the time that we became pro surfers, I mean, it was there for sure. There was the path was paved lightly, but it wasn't like it is today, where it was a very, it was somewhat of an untrodden path to be a pro surfer in the 80s.
Definitely.
You have a great story of when you first encountered a surfboard, or your first board. I remember you telling me years ago. Can you talk about that?
Well, the first board I got, my parents split up when I was 7, and my mother wanted to move from LA down to North County, San Diego. And so we moved down to this Cardiff Cove spot, and it's not very far from the beach, but for a little kid, it's pretty far. And I saw a guy on his bike with connected, like a surfboard connected to wheels and like a wagon behind it with wheels. I'm like, where is he going? What's he doing? And I'm like, oh, he's going surfing. And I'm like, oh, and he looked cool. And I was like, I want to do that. So I used to get $1 for every year that I was alive. So I got $8 for my 8th birthday and spent $1 on the ice cream man and had 7 left over. And then I ended up buying a Bing surfboard
Okay.
for $7.
Nice.
And one day my dad took me to the beach and I tried it down at Cardiff Reef, and I never stood up. I didn't have any help. And it was kind of a windy, rough day. So it was hard. And I was amazed at how fast I went just laying on my belly, but I didn't stand. I didn't even try to stand up. And I came in and I said to my dad, I'm like, nah, I don't like surfing, basically, and didn't surf. And then my mother moved us to Leucadia right by Beacons 2 years later when I was 10. And one day I went to my grandparents' house in Canada. That my mother's Canadian, and I used to go to my grandparents' place in Canada every summer. That's where my mother learned to be a water skier and fishing with my grandpa. It was awesome. And anyway, I came back. This is like beginning of August, I suppose, in 1976. And my friend, who was a year or two older than me, we walked down to the beach to go swimming. And as we walked to Beacons, and we walked down there, and I looked over and I saw this sort of brownish, surfboard that had no fin. It was just laying in the sand, kind of not really next to anybody. And I was like, whose is that? And I specifically remember my friend saying, who cares? Like, let's go swimming. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, I'm interested like in that surfboard that's just sitting there, and it looks like it's nobody's board. And he's like, you're such a weird kid. Let's go swimming. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of like, you're annoying. And I was just like magnetized to the board. And so I asked a bunch of people around, like, hey, is that your board? Is that your board? Even back then with your perception as, I'm not sure, maybe it's that person's board that's 400 yards away. Cause maybe, I don't know. Is that your board? What? That thing over there, you see it? No. So I went over and I grabbed it, and I noticed it had a picture of Jesus on it. It looked like probably a page out of the Bible. Someone had laminated on it when he was on the cross. And I just grabbed it and I walked down the beach, and it was a glassy, windless day, and it was easy, and I just stood on it and it started slipping. So my first stand-up wave was on a finless board.
Nice.
And it started sliding, and I think I got 2 or 3 of those, and just hit with like a bolt of lightning, and told my friend, I'm like, you should try this. This is so fun. I'm going to go back and get my other board. And so I ran all the way home, like confirming to the kid that I was a weirdo, or I was, annoying, because I wasn't just going swimming. I was like, I'm going back to get the board. It's like, what are you doing? And I started surfing that day, and started plotting my, like, if I keep doing this every day, maybe I'll be the best kid. And like, I was already determined to be the best at that point. Like, I was already like, I want to be the best kid in 5th grade.
Yeah. No, and you had that, knowing you at age 15, you clearly had that in you. And I never knew it back then, but now, knowing where you are now in your life, it all makes perfect sense. And we're going to get into that later. But okay. So you find, I love the surfing in the 70s was such a great, I'm so glad that we came from that period, because there were all these really interesting influences that,
For sure.
There was yoga, there was the health food store, there was like all this stuff that
was all Encinitas, Self-Realization Center.
Yes. Yogananda.
Yeah.
Paramahansa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yogananda, Paramahansa. And when I first started surfing, I was invited to a couple of these like sort of parties with adults that surfed. And I had the sense that surfers cared about each other. There was a brotherhood, a sisterhood, and it was a shared experience.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the cool. I came home to tell my mother, like, this is the coolest. I played soccer, and I wanted to be a pro football player or a baseball player. I wanted some kind of athletic sport that I was going to be a superstar in.
Yeah.
And I came home and went, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, knowing you for 40 years now, I think if it wasn't surfing, it would have been something else that you would have poured yourself very deeply into. But again, we'll get into that. But okay, so I meet you at age 15. I think that year you qualified for the NSSA national team. You were on that program for a while. You were winning a lot of amateur events, and then your big sort of breakaway result was winning the Stubbies Pro 1985, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I was there on the beach watching that. You were a rookie. You were like, I don't think a lot of people would have pegged you to take out everyone that you did along the way.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Well, I told my dad when I was 17 that I was going to quit because I kept going to the competitions and losing. And I thought that I surfed well enough to win them, and I was better than some of the people or at least I thought I was better than some of the people that were winning them. And I thought, you know what? I just don't have what it takes to compete because I'm losing all the time. And I'm kind of beating my head against the wall. And maybe I started to play music, and I was like, maybe, and I got into an acting class at high school, like real late, and it was really easy for me. Like it was kind of one of those things that was like, this is, and I could see the eyes of the drama teacher going like, okay, like that was awesome, and I was like, okay. But I came home and told my dad like, hey, I'm going to quit, man. This is just, and he goes, oh, okay, I'll come down and take a look. And so it started right then. And, my dad, he's a very, very blunt guy. And very first session, I surf and I come in and I'm kind of got a bit of swagger. Like, yeah, I killed it out there. And I'm kind of coming up expecting him to go, wow, you're really good. And he says the opposite. He's like, man, you look terrible out there. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, you're waving your arms around all over the place. And I'm like, I tell him, I go, I need to do that. He goes, no, you don't. And I go, you don't even surf. What do you know? Like what? He goes, I know I don't surf, but there's something wrong with it, And I was like, okay. Instead of being like, beat it, old man, I was more like, okay. And then his job sort of dried up, and he just started working with me every day. Like every day we would go, and there was a communication gap because he didn't know what a top turn was, a cutback, and he said, "Well, your snaps look good, but your cuts look terrible," or opposite. And I'd be like, "What's a cut?" Well, you cut into the way. Like I don't know. It was really funny.
Yeah.
And then, we had to move from our house because we didn't have any money. And I just signed actually a week after he started helping me, I won a Pro-Am. I won the Husong's Pro in Mexico.
Okay.
And then I think a month later, I got second in another Pro-Am. It was at Carlsbad Warm Water Jetty. It had Willie Morris, Bud Lamas, and Paul Barr made the final. And I got second. And those were the best pros at the time, Willie Morris and Bud Lamas, and and I was like, okay, so I'm competitive, and my surfing started changing. I started surfing with a lot more finesse and a lot more. I got a lot better because of my dad. But the thing that was really crazy was, so we had to move into a motel in Costa Mesa called the Ha Penny Inn. And I used to say it, I'm like, why do they say Ha? Why is it Ha Penny? Like what they go, Ha Penny? Take it. I don't know. We would surf, and then we'd go to the movies, eat, and then go back to the motel. And, I was living on my Team Gear sponsorship, which was $250 a month. And we were just figuring it out and going to the beach every day. And then the first year of me being a pro, I lost so much. And I lost, remember, that's when the PSAA happened. Yes. And I decided not to go to Australia and stay home and start the tour fresh in 85. I lost first or second round in those. I just had I was like, man, I don't know. And so one of the major things that happened was I kept hearing that, don't get so mad when you lose. And I couldn't quite understand that because I was like, look, I'm being real. Like I'm pissed off that I lost. I lost because of me, because I couldn't perform, not because of judging or this. It was me. And I was pissed off at myself for not being able to perform. And my dad was saying, look, it's kind of like a golf game. There's 18 holes. The contest is like one hole. If you really get bent out of shape at one hole, it's going to affect how you play in through the year. And it took me a while to handle it. And then, yeah, we went to the Record Bar Pro in North Carolina. I surfed against Mark Richards in the after I can't remember who I surfed against in the 33rd round, but I got to the top 16 up against Mark Richards. And my mindset was like, I'm going to smoke this guy. This is old. This is an old man.
4-time world champion Mark Richards.
I'm going to smoke this guy. This guy's got no chance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm way faster, and I'm going to throw like my board all over the place, and he's going to surf slow. Mm-hmm. And he's probably only 29 or maybe 30 at the point, at the time. Yeah. But that was my mindset, and he got me on a technical paddling interference. I won the heat, but he got me on a technical paddling interference, and I was like, man, but I was like, okay, I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to handle it, And so the next contest is, during that contest, Glenn Winton got second, made the final, and I somehow was hanging with Glenn Winton and watching him. My dad says the reason I won the Stubbies is because of the time I spent because I watched Glenn Winton prepare himself to perform each heat, and he said that helped me.
Interesting.
So I watched Glenn take fins off and glue fins on and make a coffee and listen to music and do his shimmy and all this stuff. And
all the little rituals.
And I love that guy, by the way.
Yeah.
And so after that, the next contest is the Stubbies Pro at Oceanside. And I go through a couple of rounds in the trials, and then I come up in the heat just before making the main event. And I've got Archie, Kelly Gibson, and Darren Brailhart. And the way to get through the heat was to get 3 waves all the way in. And or 3 or 4. It was kind of egregious that there were that many. Mm-hmm. So I had maybe 2 that went all the way in and 1 that went halfway. And my 4th one, you had to have them all the way in. Mm-hmm. And the time there was not enough time. It got whittled down to 2 minutes. There's not enough time for me to get 2 waves all the way in. And I felt it. I started to well up in a victim thing, oh man, I started, fuck, I'm going to lose. I started to do this story thing.
Yep.
And I stopped that, and I went, you know what? I almost was like, what am I going to do all week, with the contest in my hometown?
Sure.
And I just stopped it, took a deep breath, and went, I'm going to be all right, And then, stupidly, I took off on a left. And every score was a right, but I went left. And I did a backside top turn and then did a backside cutback. And as I'm doing the backside cutback, because the left's really short, the right's really long. As I'm doing the backside cutback, there's a low road wave that's bounced off the jetty that is got twice as much power as anything I'd ridden.
I love this.
And I go, whoa.
I'm so with you.
And I just went whoop over the double up and just hammered the thing. I must have, I'm trying not to exaggerate, but I must have done 9 turns that were just as hard and as radical and as full on as I could.
Yeah.
And I got a 9.5, and I scraped into second, and I got into the main event. And I was like, wow, I didn't get mad, and this kind of thing. It was kind of like these things went bup, 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 bup.
Yes.
And then
revelations.
Yeah. And then I went through I had Simon Anderson in my first heat. Once again, I was like, there's no way he's going to beat me. Right. It'd be like me going up against Tara right now. There's, you know what I mean? Maybe if it's top to bottom tubes, I wouldn't think that way against MR or Simon, but it was California waves. And I was up against Simon. I'm like, there's not a chance he's going to beat me. So that was the mindset, you know? Mm-hmm. So I beat him. Then I came up against Sean, and Sean was sponsoring me for surfboards at the time. And my first thought was, MR pulled the paddling interference last time, and I got to watch out for these old guys. And as I'm saying that to myself, internal conversation, I'm going, fuck, I can get him on a paddling interference too. Fuck, got to watch out for me. I could do that same thing. Mm-hmm. So I did it. I got him on a paddling interference, and he fell for it. I totally did this acting thing, and he fell for it. Man, I saw a grown man turn into kind of like a child, and I was kind of blown away at because he's the consummate general and
Sean
everything.
Thompson, yeah. Yep.
But his competitiveness came out, and he was pissed off.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he was really pissed off.
You don't get to those levels without having that
No.
fire.
I'm not trying to say anything bad about Sean. I'm just saying that I just didn't. It was a very awakening kind of thing.
Yeah.
My board was really, really good, and I tore that heat up too on top of it. And there's a video that they made a video of the thing, and I'm wearing like a cut off sleeves and beret, and I'm so cocky in it. I'm like, I would have beat him anyway, but I would have. Mm-hmm. So I did it because I wanted to send a notice too. I was like, look, I know I'm young, but you can't mess with me too.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then I came up against Lambrisi. And Lambrisi was Stubbies, and he was Oceanside, and he was in the paper, and Lambrisi's the local hope and all this stuff. And I'm only like 10 minutes south going, what about me? You know?
Yeah.
And my first wave against Lambrisi, it's like head high. It looks really fun, glassy Oceanside. And I overshoot this bottom turn, top turn thing, and my tail blows out. Boom, like that. And I make it, and I do the thing, and I don't really think much of it. I think, oh, kind of sort of maybe mess that turn up. And they're like, Brad, 8.5. I'm like, oh, snap. Oh. And I just crushed Lambrisi's just pissed because I'm younger, and I'm just, you know what I mean? He's just, we all have strong egos. So at that point, and I don't know if you remember Lambrisi, but Lambrisi was very like smarmy, like very like super nice to your face, but the most competitive person. And so it was a disingenuous niceness about him and behind your, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't hold that against him either because we all wanted to win. But,
sure.
But at the time I was like, you're not being real. Why don't you just be real and let everybody know you want to win? Don't be Mr. Nice Guy, but whatever, we're all young and growing up and learning things. And testosterone is like, it's full.
No, the testosterone's just dripping out of you.
Full.
The thing I remember about you is watching you win that event was like seeing you. It was a realization of what I saw in you all the time, which was, I mean, you always had your fingers going. We would be like standing on the beach, ready to paddle out in the heat, and you were mind surfing the waves with your hand, like flying all over. I mean, I
got that from John. I got that from Glom. Glom's like the most amazing like mimicker of surfing.
And, you had that pouring out of you, and it was you could feel the intensity, and so it was interesting because I sort of, I grew up skateboarding among the Dogtown guys. I was a young kid there. And when the movie finally came out, the Stacy Peralta documentary, I thought, I always thought that thing was incredible, but now it's being sort of validated because it's a successful film that people are turned on to. And what I felt like I was lucky to be exposed to as a kid was it was all that. Seeing you win that event was sort of like, Brad's always had this thing about him. And we were all trying to win big events, or we were trying to do the best we could as competitive surfers. But seeing you win that was like, yep, that thing that I saw in Brad early here it is coming to fruition, being realized on this global stage.
But to your point, the reason I mentioned about living in the motel was that, and losing, was that I was like, my career is just I had several times when I was like, maybe it's not going to happen. But then each time I'd say, maybe it's not going to happen, I'd be like, I can't see that. I can't see that it won't happen. It can't not happen. I have to have it. I have to be a star. Like it was kind of like an internal, and I was beating my head against the wall. And then, so when I won that contest, I'm just giving you like real quick, after the Lambrisi, I surfed against Winton.
Yeah.
And I had the worst heat ever. And I came in and it was in the quarters, and I thought, gosh, I could have made the semis so easy. Oh, well, this is the best result of my life. I proved I'm like, here I come, and somehow I won on a 3-2. And then, and he had a shocker too, I guess. And it was like an afternoon blown out crappy heat. Then I had Terry Richardson in my semi, and it was the best 2 of 3, but that was the next day. And I woke up that morning and I teared up because I felt like I was going to win. Like I was like, I'm going to win today. But in a sense, even if I didn't win, I won because I made the semis. You know what I mean? I was like, so I had like a lot of, I didn't have a lot of pressure, and so I beat Terry. And so funny, I read Terry's book, and he's like, yeah, the waves are terrible. I'm like, I actually remember they were kind of fun, but and I remember looking at him thinking, he's an old man too, so I'm going to fucking wax him.
Yeah.
And then And then I had Carol in the final. And there was stuff in the paper that Carol's manager was like, Tommy Carroll's got 6.5 body fat, and he's just he's a this, that, and the other, and all this stuff. And I was, and it was the best 2 out of 3 against Tommy. And I won the first one and had this crazy paddle battle with him. Like, he dunked my board underwater, and I was like, what? That goes on? And then I won. I thought we were going to 3 because I thought I lost the second one, and I won the second one. So I won the whole thing. So the most powerful of all that stuff, I can see it so clearly. Sorry, dude. I told the story the other day, and I couldn't, but seeing my dad's eyes, looking at his eyes, like, like we did it.
Yeah. Nice.
Fuck. So rad to see his face, because he knew how hard I tried, how hard I struggled, and that it was possible. I wasn't ever going to make it. I don't know. Like, it was just so rewarding.
Yes. And I must,
the reason I'm crying is I can see his blue eyes and I can see his face so clearly.
It's nice. It's beautiful. I can see it too. I remember your dad very well. So then you stand on that stage with the breakdown of the heats behind you. You've got your Stubbies jersey on. There's like champagne being squirted all over. You're holding this like oversized check for 10 grand or whatever it was.
4,500.
4,500. But what did that feel like? What was that like?
Yeah. That was, I'm going to make it. Mm-hmm. That was all right.
Yeah, it's going to happen for sure.
Right. I'm no matter what happens, I'm going to make it now. Yeah. And it was triumphant. It was really good because it wasn't just me. It was my dad and I. Yeah. And that is so much more than just being for you. Mm-hmm. So much more.
When you think back on your pro years, and there were 6 or 7 maybe years on tour or something like that?
My first real year was 85. 84 was sort of a half year, and I quit at the beginning of 92. So 7.
Yep.
Yeah, 7.5.
What would if you were to think about it? Was there a high point? Was there a moment where you think that was like the best of my pro surfing years?
Oh, 91 was dominant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What made 91 so great?
I started the year out staying at Ryan Allegage's house, and Ryan Allegage, total rookie, won the first event at his home break in Manly.
I remember
he was
that.
number 1 in the world. And I still always say that to him. I go, number 1 in the world. Like, it's just, we just would laugh. And I like to stay with people that didn't take themselves too seriously. Just have lots of laughs. It was amazing to watch him win. I was so stoked. So I went to Bell's, and I had it was at Rincon, and I had Poto in my heat, and I was like, I'm going to blaze that guy. Like, in big waves, no, but in these small little rights, he's got no chance. Now, I'm saying this on the mic right now, but this isn't what I'm walking around telling everybody. This is the confidence of the athlete inside me going, I'm going to kill that guy. Yeah. And I hope that the other athletes, surfers that are confident, feel that same way, but don't necessarily have to voice it, Yeah. Although if you did, it makes it exciting. Makes you want to watch it more. Yeah. That's why they do that in fighting, Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, I have no coach. I stupidly go over and get one of those, a baked potato. In Australia, they call them a jacket potato. And it's filled with cheese and beans and this and that and all this is really good. And I get one of those before my heat. And I go out there and just cannot surf at all. I dig rail. I go slow. I'm digesting this potato right before my heat. Like, what an idiot. And I'm just going like, I'm so bummed at myself. So our friend, Glenn Casey, who I always stayed with, he's he's a spiritual guy. Yoga, and I met, he's just one of my best friends. And anybody who knows Case knows he's more than just a spiritual guy. He's one of the most amazing, funny, charismatic people I've ever met. hardcore surfer. Anyway, we go into Melbourne and we go to the New Age bookshop, and I buy this creative visualization book and tape because I'd listened to it once before a while, and I go, I need something to change my whole mindset. I buy it, I listen to it nonstop, and I win the next contest.
Shakti Gawain, Creative Visualization.
Exactly.
I think you turned me onto that book around that time, and I know the book well.
Yeah, I'm always sharing what's worked for me because I want my friends and I want people to do well. I want to live in a world where people do well and thrive. I don't want to be like, I have everything and I'm good. I think, what kind of world is that? Like, everybody should be thriving.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's interesting because now the popular term would be manifesting things, right? And
she said those words quite a bit in there, manifest.
Yeah.
And, and just really visualize. And so many weird things happened during that event that were just kind of like they went my way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What a high, right? To be sort of visualizing things and then have them be realized, right?
For sure.
I mean, what a great lesson. When I think back on my years of professional surfing, I think, there was a lot that I learned. For me, a lot of it was traveling and meeting new, interesting people, but a lot of it was also just digging into your own potential, trying to better yourself, trying to sort of access the Superman within, if you will.
Yep.
And I think that's like one of the great things that's common with all competitive, professional level athletics is that thing of it's interesting hearing you talk about the confidence because, of course, I mean, it can be really, really fun when it's vocalized like a Muhammad Ali and very charismatically. But that's like the inner dialogue we have with ourselves is to tell ourselves that we can beat these people and be great and this greatness within. And we're constantly trying to tease out more of it. Like, just give me more of it, give me more of it. And then you utilize that, you implement that, and then you win your heat.
But when you say that you had some free surfs where you clearly couldn't put a foot wrong, that you could do anything on the wave, and you go, okay, if the world tour was watching right now and everybody was watching right now, I'd be able to go toe to toe with the very best, with Tom and Aki and Potts and Archie and whatever. I belong in this group.
Yes.
Okay. Then, so that about yourself. Then you go to the competition and completely stiffen up and get nervous and blow it, or take the first wave of the set, or just make all these mistakes and walk away with okay, I've still got a lot to learn. Mm-hmm. And I'm mad at myself because I know what I can do. And other people, like my dad, for instance, would watch those surfs and agree with me that I belonged in that group. So it wasn't just me having delusions of grandeur. Mm-hmm. It was real. Mm-hmm. And I think also too, in 91, I had been on Xanadu's boards for a year, and I think he was making the most progressive surfboards of anybody at the time. And they were really fast, really vertical, really loose, and they allowed me to do whatever I wanted on the waves. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to look within and be like, am I lying to myself? Am I really not that good? And and like, I think I'm better than I am, or is it the other way around? Am I really good enough and I just need to unlock some sort of thing to allow my body to perform at its best? And that's the way I felt. I felt like I was good enough. I just needed to unlock. And in 91, I unlocked it a bit, and I was able to deliver, I surfed really well at the Coke, and that I won. I surfed well in Reunion, but lost to Sonny on a really close one. And then I won the Gunston. Oh, I won. I got second at the J-Bay Dream sequence, which kind of pissed me off because I was way out ahead. I should have won that. But I was like, I won the Gunston the next week, and I was like, I'd rather win the Gunston because the points are there. So went into number one in the world there. Then went to the OP, got third there. Should have competed a little bit smarter. Would have beaten Richie, and probably won that contest too. Then go into Europe. And I broke up with my girlfriend because I was an idiot. And then I bounced back a little bit, but then I just didn't believe I could win. And I think that is what drives me to be a teacher, because you have to believe.
Right. No, well, that's so interesting because I think it was 1992 that you came, and we were hanging out a lot in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I remember there was I sense from you, you kind of you renounced the faith of competitive professional surfing. I remember you were just kind of over it. You wanted you told me a great story, I think, as I recall, and you can clarify, but it was something about being in Europe in an event and taking off and sort of thinking about what the judges wanted from you, but you were like, I want to surf a different way. I don't want to be basically doing that by the book, to the criterion style of surfing.
Yeah, that story was surfing. It was a large, unruly day at Hossegor, and I'd taken off on a wave. I think I was up against Barton, and they had this weird like start stop thing, and it was kind of an annoying kind of thing. And anyway, I got this wave, dropped down, and I looked up, and the wave was so pretty. The way that I still remember it. And the way the wave was curling, it was curling over, and like it was an overcastish kind of grayish day, and it was like the colors. I saw all these different gray colors in the wave, and I was just mesmerized by it. And I didn't think much about it when I came in and I lost. A Sarge said to me, like, what are you doing, man? You just dodged that barrel completely. Like, what's your, like, what do you fuck? You kind of like would have won that heat if you would have, you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, shit, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't seize the competitive moment. I'm more artistic, I'm more interested in the artistic side. And is this right for me? Like it was like it was a moment where I was really like, but that was bitching.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Were you doing psychedelics?
I had,
Yeah.
but I wasn't on doing psychedelics when I was competing or anything.
No, I don't.
But I had done it
that stage.
I had done it by that stage. I the first time was in Brazil when I was 20.
Okay.
And, yeah.
No, but it's interesting because I think about, okay, so there's that, and you and I are the same age. So there's that in our sort of, our personal trajectories, right? Of having been on the tour for many, many years and having maybe from a young age for a solid decade of our lives, surfing to the criterion, thinking that winning events is what surfing is all about. That period was so interesting because when I think about it in the grander scheme of things, it was 1992. The world had been there was a recession happening. I really feel like a lot of the sort of bubble of the 80s surfing and the commercialism and the big giant logos on the boards, it kind of burst. And there was, that was the time when Tom Curran went on The Search. And that was about, going to far flung places to find perfect waves. There was almost like this reevaluation of what is at the essence and core of surfing. What does it mean to us? And when we were hanging out, I remember we would have these great conversations late into the night about this thing. And it was, if you listen to our conversation, we would be like, it was subversive to competitive surfing. We were on this entirely different trip where it was like, we're going to go surfing on our own and we're going to surf the way we want, and we're not going to be doing it with a singlet on for them,
It was important for depth and longevity and love, joy, and the pursuit of joy, human connecting with Mother Nature. And am I compromising it? By all I'm thinking about is competition, and I need to win. And look, I think being a competitive person and loving surfing and then competing, at surfing, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And you would always hear people saying there's no soul, and I'd just be like, I'm having fun doing it. There has to be soul in it if I'm having fun doing it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But then there were a lot of things that were just, look, I think if I was just a full stoner, like total non-thinker person, I could have rolled with a lot of the decisions that the ASP made, but they made a lot of stupid decisions that compromise the surfers. Like the surfers were just like literally like circus animals, like the circus animals don't have any say where the circus goes or whether the show should be an hour or 2 hours, or, hey, I'm getting hot and I need some water over here. I'm just a horse, Yeah. I mean, seriously, I say this one as people are like, why'd you quit? And I'm like, well, again, I was number one in the world, and I pulled up to the contest site and there was no parking for me. I was like, is there parking for the competitors? No. I was like, right. I worked my it's been pretty hard to get here. Yet now I don't get a valet situation where the athlete comes and I'm watching pro number one tennis players and golfers and getting like, hey, this is the draw. And I knew by that point I was self-aware to know that I was a famous surfer and that people are coming there going, I want to see Brad live, and that's why I'm going to take the day off, or that's why I'm bringing my family down, or what, not just me, but the other guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, this sucks. Like what does a guy have to do? You know what I mean? And so there were there were bad decisions and stuff. And I think that in itself, I went like, I need to grow. I need to go beyond this and I need to grow. I don't want to stay on this merry-go-round and then get off and have no skills for life skills.
Yeah.
And then I have to get like a job selling surfboards or whatever it is. I don't want, I remember signing with Rip Curl and them saying like, hey, look, when your career's done, you could be a sales rep and, you can really work with a company. And I remember thinking, this is going to work with it. Like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to kick some fucking ass here, basically.
Yes. Yeah. No, but it's so interesting and I had the exact same experience. And I remember, the interesting thing about being a pro surfer is the story we tell ourselves is that we're a big deal, right? Like it's essential. You have to be doing that. You have to believe you're digging, as we said earlier, like you're digging deep into yourself for this. And the idea of, I'm going to step off and I'm going to be going from surf shop to surf shop, like slinging wetsuits or clothes or whatever, is like a great letdown. But that, the other thing is, while we had this great opportunity, surfing as this stage, being a famous pro surfer, traveling all around the world, all this incredibly privileged, fortunate life. At the same time, there is you do it with your blinders on to some extent. There's a singular focus of one event into the next. And I think, I don't know, at least for me personally, when I stepped off tour, it was a kind of, it was like the blinders had come off and I looked around. I was like, oh my God, there's so much great stuff in life to explore. And there's so much in me that I did not even know was there, because I was utilizing this one part of myself that, and it's a great part, but it's very much in the ego. It's
essential though. If you want to be successful, you have to put the blinders on and you have to focus. But what I don't know why, but probably Dave Kennedy had a bit to do with it. My dad had a bit to do with it. It was like, when you're out there and you're in France, go to the Louvre.
Yeah.
Go to the Picasso Museum.
Yes.
Go try tasting some wine. Go eat different things. Go experience stuff, because you may never be able to go back there.
Yes.
And you don't want to go there and then and regret that you didn't go to the countryside and have country wine and truffles and things that you'll never taste in America.
No, I like that. I think when I think back on it all, I feel like that my motivation to be a pro surfer was this sort of excellence. I liked bringing home trophies. And then I got out on the world tour, and similar to you, my dad really was always saying, look at things and learn, and these are great opportunities. So that part of me was being sort of piqued and open slightly.
Your dad was academic, right?
Yes. Yeah. So he was giving me books to read along the way. He would have a map spread out. This is digital world. So it was like, I would be going to the Europe leg, traveling around with you guys.
You couldn't have your job as a writer if you didn't have a frame of reference for the world. Like your frame of reference from traveling around the world and your connections to people in Brazil and Europe and Australia and beyond gives you this confidence. And I say the same with my teaching is that without my dad's background and all the people I've encountered, I wouldn't have the confidence to be a teacher. And I'm not doing it for money. Yes, I make money. Yes, I provide for my family that way, but I am good at it.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm good at it is because of all the stuff I've learned. And I didn't even know I was going to be a teacher.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was going to be my thing. I just naturally like to help people. And then when I became a teacher, I was like, oh, so that's why I experienced all that stuff. So I can help people.
Yes. No. And so now I think we get into the teaching. And what's interesting for me is my first meeting with you I never really thought of it as teaching, but there was this infectious spirit that, to my mind, is like one of the qualities of a good teacher, where it was you were living you were walking the walk, I guess. You were in the thing that you were sharing, and you weren't consciously teaching. But then I mean, I think this is maybe like 1990, 91. We're in Reunion Island. The event is at Saint Loup, that long left, which you wouldn't want to surf now because it's very shark infested, but we didn't know it at the time. But I remember, like, we were warming up for the contest. I ran into you at some little like smoothie place, and we were eating lunch, and you were talking about backhand off the tops and how you'd learn, like, when you get to the top, you swing your head back down, and it was a very technique based thing. And you weren't doing it in a didactic way. You weren't like trying to tell me how it's done. It was more like you were just stoked and excited about learning new body mechanics to enhance your surfing. So then many years later, when I saw you very active as a coach, breaking surfing down as a teacher, I thought, oh, Brad had this was always in him. It was there all along. I didn't realize it then. At what point did that sort of take off for you?
Well, what's good to note is there's coaching and there's teaching. Coaching is helping somebody perform what they already know how to do. Teaching is showing something to somebody that they do not know how to do or even know exists. So I am a teacher as well as a coach. There's two different things. With Taro, I teach Taro. This is Taro Watanabe. If you'll know who he is if you don't already. I teach him. I've been teaching him since he was 11, but I also coach him so that he performs what he already knows how to do. And that's for competition, And so for somebody that isn't in competition or I may coach him at, Pipeline or Chopu or whatever and say, hey, you know how to do this stuff, but remember this and remember that, and don't think too much, connect into the wave. That's coaching. That's, it's really kind of, there's a lot of coaches, but I would say there isn't an abundance of teachers. That is the biggest reward for me, to help somebody connect into the power of the ocean. Is like it. You see it in people's eyes. They just light up like, I did it, man.
Yeah.
I made that section that I never make.
Yep.
And I get emails, I get lots of stuff that people's like, dude, you just saved my, I thought I was on a trajectory going worse and worse and worse, and I've turned the corner, man. I'm so stoked I didn't even know that this stuff existed. So I feel like in a way I'm kind of like an astronaut or an excavator. I'm down there digging in, and I'm like, treasure that I can share with everybody, not treasure that I'm going to hold off and only, like kind of that. And yeah, it's a natural place for me.
It seems like it. Do you have it in your head at all times? Are you always kind of thinking about surfing waves?
The thing is so interesting is there's head, heart, and body. And the difference by teaching wave key and developing wave key is putting the feeling of surfing in my body. And by having the feeling of surfing in my body, it allows me to connect to the wave.
Yep.
Better and better and better. And one of the things that is inspirational to me is I studied Aikido for about a year. And I've said this a few times before, so people may say, oh, I know what he's about to say. But this is worth hearing again and again and again, is that the founder of Aikido, his name's Morihei Ueshiba. He's referred to as O-sensei. And Aikido's main thing is transcending the violence. It's circular. It's it's to be able to, it's self-defense. There's no strikes and things like that. It's to handle multiple attacks. So you need to connect in with yourself in order to connect to the attacker. And you use ki, which is life energy, the universal power. It's beyond thinking. Our minds can't do it. So Morihei Ueshiba said his best Aikido was in his 70s because he didn't have any muscles left. So he could only use his key. And so in a sense, that's what I think about with surfing. I've got injuries. My body's way more limited than it used to be. And I think that I'm able to be soft and connected to my body, and I connect into the wave, and I it feels like my rides are longer, even though they're not over so fast. And the joy of being able to turn, each tiny little turn is honored. The wave is honored. It's changed so much from that. And I think that I feel stoked that he said that he did better Aikido in his 70s. I think, well, maybe I could do my best surfing when I lose all my muscles. And so wave ki has developed off of the skeleton, off of the bones. And the question to be asked and re-asked is, how do you stack your bones above your feet to turn and control the surfboard? What do you do? And it's not a static. It's not a pose. It's a continual circle, whether it's spiraling up or spiraling down. It's little, medium, large, tiny, minuscule. And the wave isn't just a perfect, it's not like a skate ramp. There's untold amounts of bump and lump and tiny, it's all circles. The surfboard's all circles. The surfboard has got a plan shape with a circle. It's got the rocker, which is a part circle. It's got the bottom curve, which is a circle. It's got the fin set as a circle. So any linear movement is where you dig rail. So when you understand that, you know that you need to be moving toe and heel, fore and aft, and spiraling with your hips. You have to separate the upper body. My dad used to say this all the time. You got to learn to separate the upper body from the lower body. And I was like, I don't understand what you mean, but I do now. And sometimes the body, the whole, and a bottom turn, the whole body works as one piece, and spiraling, you extend up. And then sometimes when you do small pumps, if your body is too stiff, all those pumps will come out in your arms and you'll look kind of like a robot or a piece of wood. But if you relax the upper body and let the lower body do it, you're super quiet above and really effective. It's elegance. And it's the human being with Mother Nature, the force of the wave, and letting the wave do the work. I know you hear that before. It sounds cliche. Let the wave do the work. But really, like, meditate on that.
Yeah.
Really, really see how much could you let the wave do it. And it'll open up, it'll allow you to surf with a lot more freedom.
You're making me want to jump in the water.
No, there's three things I hear from wave kias. The first thing is, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Or it's either that makes a lot of sense, or the first one is, I never thought about that before. And then the third one is, I want to jump in the water. And I hear that from 13-year-olds, 60-year-olds. After talking about it a while, you're like, ooh, because it's a feeling.
Who are your favorite surfers?
Well, I quite like, at the moment, I quite like watching Ethan Ewan surf. I think he surfs really fluid and elegant and beautiful, and sometimes a little sleepy. I love John surfing. I'm still quite interested in Kelly surfing. I always want to watch Kelly, even when Kelly's not surfing well, because when he's not surfing well, I know what he's doing wrong. And Stephanie Gilmore, she's insane to watch. I loved watching her at Jeffreys Bay. I thought she was the most enjoyable surfer to watch at Jeffreys Bay over any of the men.
Yeah,
and her power and her relaxation and her read and all that stuff. I think she's very good at being able to soften. And this is the direction, in my opinion, for all surfers to go as they improve. It's the only direction to go to improve. Throwing balls against the wall, getting stronger, surfing stronger, that will only... Yeah, if you're young and you need to get a little stronger to paddle stronger, and yes, okay, it's all specific stuff.
Yes,
but surfing stronger, you're going to hit a plateau, and you can't get stronger to get better. You've got to go softer.
No, it's so interesting you should say that, because I wanted to bring this up, and it relates to what we're talking about now. I worked so hard while I was a pro surfer. I feel like when I look back on my 5 years on the world tour, I think I was wound a little too tight for my
The
own
word
good.
you used is work.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I did 5 years, and I was very fortuitously, I was living in Sydney when I sort of stepped off the tour. And I started writing for magazines at that time. This is around when you came to visit in Newport Bungan.
Yep.
And I was still surfing every day, and I was still very active in my surfing, but I wasn't competing anymore. And I'm pretty sure that year of 92, I did the best surfing of my life. And it was this classic thing when the Kelly Slater film Letting Go came out. I thought, letting go, that's exactly it. I let go, and I'd worked so hard, or I'd analyzed and picked apart my surfing to such an extent. I was working my body, etc. By not trying to win an event, by just going surfing and allowing the self-expression, but with all the foundation of all those years competing, I just feel like that was the best surfing I've probably ever done.
Also, make no mistake, there's an internal competitive animal in there. And, you paddle out at any lineup and you want to rip.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
I every time I go surfing, I want to surf well, and,
Yeah.
And I have to notice that about myself, and I have to flick a switch off.
Yes.
Because I try too hard. I
For
know this
sure.
about myself.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I flick a switch off, and then as soon as I stop trying too hard, it's a physiological thing. I always hear Wim Hof, it's physiological, the way he says it, but it's true. It's physiological. You flick the switch off, you flick the tension off, then your whole body opens up a bit,
Yeah.
stops contracting,
Yeah.
and you lower your center of gravity, whatever, it's on a micro level, but
Yeah.
you get more connected to your board, and then thus more connected to the wave.
Absolutely.
There's so much to surfing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. All of it great, Bradley. It's a joy to talk to you, and thanks.
Awesome. That was
Good
fun.
stuff.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
Super fun.
We went a long time.
I know we did. I'm
I love
sweating
it.
over here.
Soundings is produced by me, Jamie Brisick, and Jonathan Shiflett. You can find it on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. Our theme song is Ohana by Farmer Dave and the Wizards of the West. Soundings is brought to you by the Surfer's Journal, a reader-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Yeti. The Surfer's Journal is published bi-monthly. If you haven't done so yet, I encourage you to visit surfersjournal.com and subscribe. Thank you for listening to Soundings, and until next time.